All right, GM, and welcome to From A to Z. We're back with another one. Coming at you.
We are back.
Doing the thing.
Feels good to be back.
Yeah, it feels good to be back. All right, so...
I see a new studio here.
We're in the new spot, you know? That's it. I'm set up, kind of. You know, it's not fully set up. You see I got an empty bookshelf over here. And empty bookshelf.
Space for opportunities.
Yeah, I'm working on it. So... You know, I got these lamps instead of the colored lights right now. So, I don't know. The colored lights might bring a comeback, or we might stick with this classy library setup I got going on. So.
I didn't do much changing on my side. A little bit of swapping canvases. I got some curtains coming, but I don't know. Little level ups. We're always on that baby step grind, you know?
Nice. Exactly. Yeah, I mean, like you said, the baby step grind. I now have a background on this episode. Last episode, we were just kicking it like us two floating in a sea of black. And now we've got the background back going again, the variation zombie time background. Yeah, nice. So... All right, what has happened since the last episode? Because it's already been a while, but...
It has. So
we went over 100K.
Yes.
And we're back under 100K. We went all the way back down to 92 again. And
did a little bit of a dump, but healthy corrections. You know, lots of people over-levered.
As of today, it looks like we might get back over 100K soon, right? Like, I never knew we were...
I saw ETH was jumping today.
Yeah.
Jumping 5%. Moving upward for now.
Yeah. Well, I've got theories on that we can get into later, but you know, we talked about it in the last episode, but we can get into that some more. But yeah, it looks like, I mean, I was never worried about a dump. Like you said, corrections. You know, like these
healthy adjustments.
Healthy corrections. Why do you need a correction? It's like a spring. You got to pull back so that you can launch up to that next level. So, you know,
there you go.
I mean, funny thing is, I called the last episode the gang mid-curves it because you asked me about Bitcoin price predictions, and I said 150K. And I'm like, that is the most bearish price prediction ever. Like,
you made me sad. I remember the feel from that, like, really? Just? Shit.
Like,
you know? It didn't feel good.
I'm not going to be surprised if we see 150K by the end of January.
Same. That's how I feel. Like, we're going to for sure hit 150K. It's just how quickly.
Right. Why do I say the end of January? Because, like, we just had a correction. It looks like we're spring loaded. These things make big jumps. I think that if we're going to do something like a 200 or a 250 or even a 300K this cycle, then you have to see a leap to 150 quickly. Like, I don't think we have until March.
It has to be evident. Right, I agree. It has to be evident that there's enough, like, latent liquidity that the market can move that much.
Right. Which, that's true, and I don't know where we're at, but it is a new year, and it's going to be a new president. And so, like, where are you with the whole, like... You know, obviously Trump has been bullish for Bitcoin. Like, Bitcoin has done nothing but go up since the election. And
the election results, even aside from Trump, were very in crypto's favor. Like, we got a lot more than we even asked for, it seemed like.
Right. Like, most of the seats, a lot of normies don't want to talk about this because when I have tried to talk to normies about this, they have been like, I don't think that's true. But, like... A lot of the seats that got lost to pro-crypto candidates, you know? So...
Whether or not it was the crypto drive that made that happen, that definitely is true.
Right. And and a lot of people don't even want to just even look at that point. It's like, yeah, the crypto thing might not have been the fulcrum, but they are pro-crypto.
Yes.
So... It is what it is.
So I think that bodes well. I think that bodes well both for price, which is like the obvious talking point, but also for progress. You know, if we can get some reasonable rules and some regulations that are actually protecting consumers instead of protecting consumers from airdrops, you know, maybe we can see progress in this space in the U.S. over the next 2 years.
Right, exactly. it's going to bring builders back. It's going to bring companies back to the US. It's going to make companies that are already here that never left better, which is really good because like look, companies that left the United States, like I get it if you're a startup and you're small and you're just a dev and a handful of people building a product, then it makes sense because you're too small to protect yourself. But in industry like Coinbase, to see somebody like Coinbase like stick through it and be, smile, not just smile, but like throw so much legal power and take everything that like the SEC threw at it and just said, no, like what you're doing is illegitimate and we're going to fight this. And then,
Yep.
and then,
That's one thing I really respect about Coinbase is their hard stance in the position. Like, here is the philosophical reasons behind why we are not going to take your crap.
right.
I respect that.
Right. And I mean, they put their money where their mouth is. They hire the lawyers to get these things turned around. And it's, I think that's really cool. It's really great that we have an entity like Coinbase that is going to fight through the tough, the tough times from what is the word I'm looking for here, damn it? Yeah. The last 4 years, basically. Like, I mean, that's the thing is people forget Trump was not pro crypto in his last, term.
Seemed completely out of the loop on crypto.
Right. But he wasn't,
crypto.
right. Like the Biden
pro-dollar.
administration was anti-crypto, or at least it allowed Elizabeth Warren and her crypto army, anti-crypto army, to do its thing. Whether or not Biden and Harris actually cared about crypto, we never got a chance to find out. But we do know that the administration under Gary Gensler and Elizabeth Warren was allowed to attack perfectly legal businesses for no reason. And, caused, we talked about this in the last episode. You know what's funny? We talked about this years ago, and it's now becoming like big news because Mark Andreessen said it on Joe Rogan. But like the entire like crypto crash was because of Elizabeth Warren directly going after crypto banks, like without proper authority. They were basically threatening banks. They were threatening companies and made it, debanking companies essentially, and just because they were crypto companies, not because they did anything wrong, debanking people and blacklisting them, and like with no legal recourse for the people affected to do anything about it, and two, no legal authority to do the thing they did to these people in the first place. And
that's how I feel. That's the confusion, because I think we might have mentioned this in the episode that I'm caught up in the Juno bankruptcy settlement.
Right.
And those are my sentiments as well. Like, how is this even possible? How is this legal? Who decided this? There's just, Still haven't seen a cent from that. Mid-November, they gave us hey, give us your bank details. We'll ACH you the money. And then...
Well, we'll see how it goes. Keep us updated. But to bring it all the way back to where we were going with this, with Trump and everything, is like, so the reason I say, like what's going to happen coming up is some people think you buy the election, you sell the inauguration. I don't think we've seen the price movement to justify selling the inauguration. I think you buy the inauguration too. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
I'm a permabull, so I'm going to agree.
So what I'm thinking is the reason it's just going to get better is because, like, for one, it's gotten this far with nothing but an election. Like, basically, it was like Trump won, 100K Bitcoin written in the code. You know what I mean? And, like, going into the new year, like, of course we're going to see a pullback, for one, because you see pullbacks. For two, it's Christmas time. People are taking profits for, so that they can like pay taxes in a couple of months and stuff like that. Like you're taking profits, you're doing, you're taking losses if you need to be honest. Like you're saying
Harvesting losses.
You're harvesting losses. So yeah, you harvest losses, you take profits, you do a little bit of both, either or, and then like you're buying Christmas presents, you're spending money, you need an extra cash, and then January rolls around and you're getting back in the market. Like if you sold, you're buying right back in, you're getting in the, especially because if you sold over 100K, you're buying back in at 93K. Why are you not buying back in at 93K? Like, why would you know what I'm? Or
Sailor's buying that hard,
right? Like, yeah, we're gonna hear the Sailor announcement any day now. Like,
there was just another one the other day. He's over 2% of the supply himself. Like MicroStrategy owns over 2% of the Bitcoin supply. Period. Already,
it's insane. So yeah, like obviously. Trump getting into office doesn't mean anything happens. You can almost expect nothing to happen the first 100 days, especially regarding Bitcoin and crypto. You can expect almost nothing.
It's not going to be a top priority.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
But Senator Lummis is working on the Bitcoin Reserve bill, and there's other people that are going to be working on Bitcoin stuff. And regardless, here's the thing. We're just talking about this cycle. Let's just talk about 25. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. But just in this first, just thinking about, for one, the crypto cycle, for two, all of these bullish things for crypto, even if absolutely no policy gets through, they're like, first of all, you can't expect any policy to get through in 25. Things take time. So all you're going to see is policy get presented in 25. All of that speculation is enough to get a 300K Bitcoin. Period.
Especially post-halving. Like
right.
We're lining up bullish things on top of one another.
Right. Well, and that's what I'm saying. The reason I say 300K is the high mark, I'm saying. Like, I don't think we're going to get over 300K. 300K is the absolute high mark. So, yeah.
Blow off top.
Yeah, that's our blow off top. But we've talked about this before. When something has utility, it's worth exactly what its utility is. You can measure it now and you can say this is what it's worth. Speculation is what drives crypto. Speculation is what drives Bitcoin. So this is what's really funny too. When you think about like meme coins, it's all attention. It's all speculation. There's no actual use case here. That's actually Bitcoin too. Like Bitcoin is a store
of religion in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
It's the idea. Everyone's just behind the idea of the thing rather than what having it actually gives you.
Right, because people don't spend their Bitcoin. It's not actually like it's a store of value. It's a pet rock. It doesn't do anything. The entire thing is built on a meme in a sense. It's built on the idea that this thing can outlast inflation, that this is the thing that will save you from fiat debasement better than any other asset. It is the superior asset, as Michael Saylor would say. It is the only asset.
Wow.
Everything else goes to zero against Bitcoin, all right?
Yeah.
So
because everything else is valued in fiat, and fiat is destined to go down always because inflation is built in.
And because Bitcoin is the only thing that you can say never goes up. There is only 21 million. That's it. That's all there will ever be. So therefore, it is the only thing in the known universe to not inflate. Matter of fact, it halves.
Yeah, that's compelling.
But when you really think about it, that makes sense to us. It makes sense to Bitcoiners. It makes sense to a lot of other crypto people. That does not make sense to a normie. That is some religious cuckoo talk.
Or a government.
Or a government.
They're thinking scarcity. How are we going to print more money? Like, what do you mean scarcity? What do you mean a cap? And we have bills to pass.
This is why Ethereum is better and more useful, in my opinion. Like, it's useful as a network, but it's also more useful as a money because I'm willing to spend it for one. I'm able to spend it for two. There's plenty of things I can do with it. I can do all of the money verbs. I can do all the money Legos. I can plug into all the things with ETH. I can't do that with Bitcoin so easily. Not unless I first turn it into ETH. I can
you can wrap it and put it onto Ethereum. Or there's, little things. You want to do art speculation? Okay, well, you got
runes.
Whatever they're called. Ordinals.
Ordinals, yeah. Runes, I guess, are the shitcoin.
I didn't get into any of
that. No. And don't get me wrong.
There's only small auxiliary use cases for Bitcoin. Whereas with Ethereum, you can do anything.
If Bitcoin had really, tried and true, layer 2s that I could do money Legos with Bitcoin, I would. So I'm not against Bitcoin layer 2s. And
do you think they're coming?
But they already have some things like that out there. And technically, if you want to be fair, Lightning is like the Polygon of Bitcoin. You know what I mean? Lightning is a whole nother network, layer 2, but it's really, it's like the POS chain. You know what I mean? It's like the Matic proof of stake chain.
It's cheaper and faster, but you sacrifice security and centralization.
Exactly. It's not Bitcoin. It's built on top of Bitcoin. Or separately. It's actually built separately than Bitcoin, the same way POS is built separately from Ethereum. Whereas the layer 2s of Ethereum are actually built on Ethereum because they settle back down to Ethereum in some way. But where was I going with all this? Bitcoin layer 2s, I would use them. It's not like I'm against them. I would be into it if there was some good, especially because if someone built a Bitcoin, this is my litmus test, and maybe this is why I don't make enough money in crypto. But my litmus test is, will Aave deploy there? So if Bitcoin had a layer 2 and Aave deployed there, I'm in like flame.
Here I come.
I am like,
I would agree with that. That'd be big green flags for me.
All day long. I mean, dude, honestly, one of the reasons that I got into Solana, one was because I felt like, all right, I have to give it a shot just to be fair, to be unbiased and fair. I got to give it a shot. I got to at least say, you can't, it's like music. I'm the same way with music. You can't say you hate something that you've never listened to. You got to at least listen to it once, and then you can say you hate it. But
I don't hate Solana. I just don't have any need whatsoever for it, so I've just not bothered with it.
But the one thing that got me there was hearing Mark Zeller, I think it was Mark Zeller, talking about how Aave is probably going to deploy on Solana at some point. So I was like, okay, well, that's a product I will use on that chain. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't use every chain that Aave's on. I don't use, Avalanche.
But if they're willing to go there, that's, like you said, a good litmus test. That's
exactly.
a good. They see the network. They understand it. They value its security. They think the TVL is there. They think the user, the activity is there. It's a good signal all around.
Right. And so that is one of my things. So going back, to what you're saying, before even the Bitcoin layer 2s. So I think that ETH in general is more useful. It's a more useful money. I don't know. It is useful as a store of value, but not. It's hard to be a store of value and money for the same reason we said people don't spend their Bitcoin. So.
And it's always been that way, I think.
Right. And so, you don't want to spend...
Hard to carry around.
Right. And either way, we live in a society where, personally, this is me. I use credit for everything. I don't carry cash. I only carry plastic. I only do things on credit. I will pay the creditor at the end of the month. and it, even with...
Switch me over to that.
Even Venmo, well, I mean, the main thing with credit is you're getting back a rebate. You're getting 1% to 4% or whatever. You're getting a discount on everything you purchase. Plus, you can do whatever you want with the money in the meantime, which for me is usually keep it in savings. So I have the money in savings, accruing interest, and then I'm waiting 30 to 45 days or however long, depending on the cycle, like, from when I made the purchase and when I'm paying the bill, it could be up to 45 days sometimes. It could be like a really long time period where you end up not paying for a thing that you made interest on that money. So that's one of the, and plus you got the 1 to 4% rewards back, which you can use to then pay the bill or whatever,
Yep.
So that's a big thing for me is using credit. Even with Venmo has a thing now. If you have an American Express card, American Express lets you borrow money to send on Venmo. So even if I need to send you cash right now, I still borrow it from American Express and pay American Express. Yeah.
So I hadn't heard of this, but it sounds just like a cash advance. Do they have some sort of an incentive, like lower APR for like Venmo users?
There's no interest on it.
How do you borrow for free?
It's just a free service that Amex and Venmo offer. Like I literally go into to pay like Venmo. You go to your person, say how much money. It says how do you want to pay. You either choose your bank account or you can choose this other thing, which I think it's called American Express Send and Split. I think is what it's called.
Okay.
So it's essentially like if you're gonna split the check with somebody, but you don't have the cash in the bank. Which I mean, I might have the cash in the bank, but I might not because I also don't keep my cash in my checking account all the time. I keep my cash in my savings account because that's where it makes me money. If even the bill cash, I keep it close by, but it's a few days away because of how banks work. My cash is always a few days away because of how banks work. I live on credit. Why? Because my cash is making me money somewhere else. That's what your cash in your pocket is not making you money.
Right.
That's it.
Your money needs to be generating your money. Yeah.
Right. Like that's the system we live in. That is the capitalist system, is making money with money. So
if you're trading your time, if you're getting your money through a wage or a salary, you're losing.
Well, even still, I get my money from a wage. I get some of my money from wages and salaries, but even that money, I'm instantly putting into investment.
So it's working for you. That's the way. Yeah.
Right.
That's the way.
Like if I'm only going to get paid this unfair wage, I'm going to turn that unfair wage into as much more as I can make of it. I'm not going to turn it into a Netflix subscription for sure. I'm not going to give you my labor hours into subscription fees. I'm not doing that. So what I'm doing is taking my labor hours and turning it into useful assets. But for some of the stuff you just hold on to cash and that's in savings. And I keep that savings you got to transfer into your checking account when you need it. So when I need to pay some with Venmo, I'm still borrowing it from a creditor for free.
I see.
So, and credit cards are free if you pay them on time. So using credit makes sense. And even when it comes to balance transfers and stuff like that, you can just get money. Like a lot of balance transfers, you don't have to actually transfer one credit card to another and stuff like that. You can just tell them to send me a check. You get a balance transfer at 4 or 5%, and then you can turn that money into more than 5%. It's free money. If you can take a 5% loan and turn it into 10%, you just made 5%.
Yeah, you got paid 5% to borrow someone else's money.
Right. You just made money on someone else's money. Like, that's what credit is for. That is what, that's why they say, not defending billionaires at all, but that's part of the reason billionaires don't pay taxes, because you are worth your stock, your assets aren't taxable, because until you sell them, they're just things you hold. Like long-term capital gains are, you pay long-term capital gains tax on things that you hold. You pay short-term capital, but you have to sell it is the point.
There you go,
and, yeah. On things you sell. I said hold. So point being though, You can't and I know a lot of people would be like, well, we should be taxing billionaires for all the stock and this and that and the other, without thinking about the implications of what that means for middle class people. Because if you're saying, like, a big thing that people don't realize is homeowners. So now, don't get me wrong, even the laws that Harris and Biden were talking about, I think would only affect people over like $500,000. That's still not that much money. $500,000 is very attainable for a lot of people. That's still very far from the 1%. Like, from the bottom, $500,000 looks like a lot. But from $500,000, you are nowhere near Jeff Bezos. You know what I mean? Like, you're still just like houses here in this neighborhood cost $500,000. So, point I'm making here is that if you buy a $500,000 house and you want to tax unrealized gains, then anyone who has a $500,000 house that goes from $500,000 to $650,000, you're asking people to pay $150,000 tax proceeds on that they don't have.
Well, tax on the $150
tax on right.
So the increase in value becomes something that you owe cash for right now that you don't have because you didn't sell anything. It's the value's tied in the house and it's all fake anyway.
And you can't sell a portion of your house.
Right? What are you going to do? Sell other assets and incur other taxable things just to pay you can't pay taxes on unrealized gains. You just
exactly can't. So, and that's the loophole that rich people, like really rich people, use, because it's hard to go for a specific group of people without hurting a lot of other people that aren't who you're targeting necessarily. But
so the strategy is don't sell your assets, borrow against them. That's what the wealthy are doing to dodge paying taxes on disposal events, sales.
Right.
They just don't dispose of it. They borrow against its value and pay it back.
And and to be fair, there's nothing really wrong with that part of it. The wrong part of it is that when they do sell shares and then they find ways to not pay taxes on that, because you are supposed to be in, but then that's when they do the other tax loopholes, which are like, charitable donations and nonprofit organizations and all the trust and all the other shit. You know what I mean? So, like, I'm not defending billionaires at all in that sense. But there are, like, parts of the tax code that are there that don't just benefit the extremely rich. They benefit the poor as well if you know how to use them. And it's not about just dodging taxes. It's about not paying for things that you actually didn't get profits in. And I think that's the other thing that people who don't invest don't realize, is that, like, you could get, like, for instance, you buy some crypto, you buy some stock. If you're just a normie and you hate crypto, whatever, you buy some stock, and then that stock goes up a bunch and you don't sell. And then that stock goes down a bunch. And then the IRS goes, well, you made a bunch of money last year. And you're like, well, wait a second, I didn't sell anything. And they're like, no, we tax on the money you could have made. That's what unrealized gains are. It's the money you could have made. You didn't make it. You didn't sell anything. They're unrealized. And so, like, that would actually be extremely scary to have a situation where the government is coming after you for money you didn't make.
Imagine you're completely dead broke. You're paycheck to paycheck, but you've got, like, a Bitcoin in your wallet from, years and years ago, right?
Or you have a house.
They could cripple you. If the value of your Bitcoin goes up, the value of your house goes up. Where are they going to take that money from?
Right. They already
you're now
do
a debt slave to the state.
It already happens in the form of property tax. Because when the value of your property goes up, so does the tax debt. When your value of your at least that's how it works here.
Annually.
When the value of your property goes up, the tax is adjusted.
But just for that year.
Right.
And the taxes those are usually millage taxes that are going to specific things in your area, so it's a little different.
What I'm saying
doesn't
is,
change, like-
if you are, say, a fixed income person, you don't have any
and
more
your
money.
mortgage goes up.
Right.
Right.
If you, and I mean, the thing is, when you say fixed income,
I've been in that situation then.
when you say fixed income, traditionally it only means like retired people. It's kind of, or like,
But it even applies to paycheck. You know, if everything that's coming in is going out, having something like property
well,
taxes go
even
up
what I was going to say is like a salaried person. If you have a salary, that's it. Like you're only getting 60, 70, whatever K it is a year, and that's your salary,
Right.
and that's what you're getting. And if your property taxes go up, well, you better just like spend less at Costco. You know, like like you have to take it out of your consumption, because other than, and I guess the reason that class of people is not considered fixed income is because you are expected to be buying assets and getting more income based on the appreciation of things like your stock. So like that's how we got on all this, is because of the credit and the assets. And so like it doesn't matter if you're poor, it doesn't matter what you make, you need to have assets, because that is capitalism. Like you have to own assets. End of story. It doesn't matter.
You are going to have liabilities guaranteed. You will definitely have liabilities to live, so you must have assets.
And that's an interesting, we don't need to dive too deep into this. Maybe this is a whole episode, but like that's an interesting right there, is like the argument about whether or not your home is an asset or a liability. Because
that's a whole separate thing for sure.
I mean, I'll just give a quick, and you can reply to this if you want, but I'll just give a quick story. And it's like with renovating this place, like, yes, we were able to afford the home. A whole bunch of stuff there was a tenant here for 7 years, so we didn't get into this side of the house for a very long time. The whole first 7 years, only one side of the house had been done. And so like we get in here and everything is fucked. They trashed the place essentially. And so I had to renovate this entire place, and I basically just, went into debt over it. Like I've been spending, I had to buy floors, I had to buy paint, I had to buy everything. Like I've done all, but also I couldn't pay someone to do it. It was way more, like if I had to pay someone to do it, it would have cost me so much money, because the small things that I did need to pay for, I was overcharged on, and they tried to rake me over the coals. So I ended up leveling up, and that's another reason we haven't done episodes all year, because I basically rolled up my sleeves, pulled out YouTube, and said, I'm a construction worker. I got this, boss. And I built a house.
Nice.
And
that feels good.
It does. It does. But the point is, if you're not able to do that, if you can't do that, then a house is a liability. Because if you have
That's how I felt.
If you can't,
I owned a house for a few years.
Right.
But it was exactly that. I can afford to buy the house. I can afford the mortgage. Even if the property taxes go up a little bit, it's like, okay, I've got some buffer there. Like you said, spend less at Costco. I'll find a way to make that work. But the maintenance thing, like if you don't factor in your house maintenance, especially if you've got an older home, is going to be
and if you
maybe
don't,
another mortgage payment.
If you don't do the maintenance, then the house is fucked.
Everything goes to zero.
The longer...
That's why I had to get completely out. My roof was going to go. I knew like, hey, I can't afford to... I can't maintain and own this. I can own it. I can maintain it. It's renting time.
So that's another part too, is like a house probably shouldn't be the first asset you own. You should probably get a lot of other assets, because then the other thing is, and this is all not financial advice, obviously, because we're idiots. But like the other thing too is, if you get a large enough pool of assets together, then you can always borrow against your assets, like we were talking about the billionaires doing, to buy your house, or more importantly, to like maybe like as your down payment, as maybe you avoid a mortgage, because if you actually got enough assets together that you can, like say if you actually built up your assets starting as a young person, you know, and you can still do it as an older person. We're all still out there trying. But like, let's just say you start when you're young and you build up your assets to have a few $1,000,000 in your 20s or your 30s. You can literally borrow, like if you borrowed a 500,000, which is like a house here, or let's say even if you bought something really nice and you wanted to go for 750,000, you could borrow 750,000 against your assets easily. That's not even like near liquidation. You know what I mean? Like, and then you could literally just pay back yourself, pay back the loan on your brokerage
at your own rate.
Right.
Yeah.
Like that's the power of having assets and having good credit. And
it's expensive to be poor.
It is. It is. Yeah, so we got all on that because of ETH, because of Aave,
that's as far as I got back to. I was trying to figure out how do we circle back? Where do we circle back to? ETH being hella usable.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean DeFi.
All of the things that we just described happen on ETH, not Bitcoin, on ETH.
Right. Yeah, you can do borrowing and lending again. You know, you just use Aave. That's
Well, we like ETH. ETH doesn't want to go up. It's fine. We'll just use it. It's fine.
You know, all right, we're going to get into it. Quick. We talked about it in this last episode, and I got some more thoughts to back it up. So I think, you know, the person constantly selling ETH, the people constantly selling ETH are the stakers, especially the staking industry, because the staking industry has bills to pay. They have not just, and I'm not talking about forced sellers, but they do have bills to pay. If you're a staking industry and you're not just doing it out of your bedroom, like you've got nodes somewhere doing this. If you're Coinbase, you got buildings that you're paying corporate rent on to do this. So, and also if you're Coinbase, you got shareholders. So you are going to sell on a schedule. I don't know what that schedule looks like. I'm not saying it's constant sell pressure, but when you spread that idea across every staking platform and every individual staker and every person who's essentially printing free ETH, because there's two things here. For one, if you already have ETH and it's printing ETH, you're literally receiving ETH at every price. The other part is, I don't know how staking is done with your taxes, but I would assume you are a forced seller for taxes, because technically isn't every deposit of ETH you receive counted as an airdrop where you would have to pay the fair value of that amount at the time of receiving it?
Yeah, when you get control of an asset, that counts as receiving and it counts as earned income.
So if you're staking, that's earned income.
If you're staking and the staking rewards are automatically deposited to your wallet, yes.
Okay, so if they're not...
But if you have to go manually claim them in a batch, you only have to claim that one taxable event of the claim into your... Like, once it's in your control is when you get hit with the taxable event.
Okay.
So I don't know how the staking services work personally.
So, I mean, so that's what I'm saying is, like... I don't know how it works either. It's probably I would think it's probably like a batch claim. You're probably not, you know, because it's Ethereum layer 1. You're not going to be doing every little...
I think Lido is a batch claim.
Yeah, so I would imagine it's almost always a batch claim, because you can some transactions are going to be like not worth claiming. You know what I mean? Like not every...
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess that's not true. Blocks should be valuable. Period. So
there's a gas cost to it. Like you don't want to claim every time there's $1 available in the pool. You don't want to spend $1 in gas to claim the $1.
Yeah, unless it's like some kind of auto thing like Aave. You know what I mean? Where you
That's why I asked, because that's a different thing. It's always accruing. You're always getting it.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that
works. Trickier.
I'm not sure how that works. But point being, it still stands is that when you actually receive the ETH, you're tax liable.
Yes.
So that is a forced sell. You have to sell at least the amount you need to pay taxes. And like whatever, you are constantly DCAing into ETH. So you can also constantly DCA out of ETH and not.
And it doesn't matter where.
It doesn't matter. Like every price is good for you because the ETH was free.
The only thing you have to focus on is increasing your units of ETH. Over time, as long as the chart of units of ETH held on average goes up, you're winning.
Yeah,
right?
Correct. So
doesn't
you
matter
can.
what the price is. You just want more units.
Well, that's true, but what I'm saying is the forced selling part of it is that no matter what the price of ETH is, if I want to sell ETH, I can because it's free money at every level.
Yeah.
Because I'm printing it. So I sell it when I need it because I'm printing it. It doesn't matter if it's only 33 today. I'm printing it. If it's 43 tomorrow, it doesn't matter. So like you're saying though, if I want to be, if I want to have my cake and eat it too, well, then I'm only selling half of my stake accrued ETH. So if I get, 5 ETH at the end of every month, I can sell 2 and still be up only. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And why wouldn't I sell 2? Because 2, even at 32, is,
You can do more in terms of yield with that cash from selling it than you can by leaving it in Ether right now.
Right, because you just got $6,400 to yeet on meme coins.
But I was just going to say, put it into WIF, right? Send that shit.
Right. So like
make some money.
There's no reason to the other big reason is because what's the price of your original ETH in the first place? If your staked ETH is $100 ETH, if it's $800 ETH, even if it's $2,200 ETH,
yeah,
you made so much money that every dime, and you locked it up into a stake. You want to sell every drop that comes out because that's what you did it for.
That's why you locked. Yeah.
That's why you did it.
This whole time you've been waiting for that. Yeah.
That's what it is. So like the constant selling are the stakers. It has to be. And then it's going to be even worse on any other proof of stake chain. Now, it's going to be worse on Solana. Why? Well, because if I got a bunch of $8 Solana a couple years ago, or even if I got $100 Solana a couple months ago, but I only need 0.001 for every transaction. Well, then having one ETH in my wallet one SOL in my wallet will last me hundreds of years.
Right. So why have more than just the one?
So why? Right. So if I'm staking, which there's no reason not to, I think the staking rate on Solana is much higher than the staking rate on, I think ETH is like 25%. Solana is closer to 50 or 60%. Meaning of holders of ETH that stake or holders of SOL that stake. So like at least half the SOL holders are staking it. So like all of your profit is free money to dump at any price. So that doesn't matter. Still looking good for SOL. But it doesn't look good for? Doesn't look good for Tezos. It doesn't look good for CeeLo. If I'm Coinbase and I'm staking thousands and thousands of CeeLo or Tezos or Cosmos or any other like zombie chain, ghost chain, Dino chain, whatever you want to call them, like these chains that really nobody's using anymore, and you're still staking as a service, bro, I'm dumping that shit. I'm dumping. Like
for sure.
And so like it's just constant, staking sell pressure. I think that, it's something that I don't think people talk enough about because because we're all doing it, I guess. In a sense, like if you're a bigger podcast, not going to point any fingers, but if you're a bigger podcast than us, you're not going to talk about this because you're invested in staking as a service some kind of way. You're solo staking or you're invested in companies that are running staking services. So like you can't go out there and be like, oh yeah, by the way, like the reason ETH price looks the way it does is because like we are totally incentivized to dump all of our ETH at any given moment.
We have to sell. Yeah.
Right. Oh, and by the way, we also have to, because like every time we claim, 15 to 30% of that is taxes.
Uncle Sam wants some. Yeah.
So, I really think that's what's hurting ETH price. Like,
Do you think that the impact of that will reduce over time with more stakers, with a higher ETH price? What do you think is the preventative? What's the correction for this? Or is this fine and normal? Does it not even need to be corrected?
I think it might be fine and normal, because honestly,
That's my gut check too. Everyone's just following incentives. That's what the network is supposed to do.
I think it's pretty normal. I think it makes sense as long as the stake rate doesn't get too high. And then I think
What's the issue? Why would stake rate being too high be a bad deal?
Because
like the yield, the rate that it's yielding?
No, that's called
Or the
issuance. So issuance is the rate that it yields. So similar to Bitcoin. Bitcoin issuance,
okay.
The halving is cutting that issuance in half. So there is talks to reduce issuance of ETH that comes out around security. That's one talk. I don't think that would be great, because I think that like less incentives to stakers would probably hurt ETH price overall. I think people would just be more bearish if they're like, oh, you're cutting the rates now. And like, this is like, you're kind of slashing people's profits when you do that. If they're making X amount now and you're going to cut issuance, then now I'm going to make X minus 30%.
Right. And maybe now I'm not incentivized to do that task that you wanted me to do.
Right. So now I may just take some of my nodes offline. I might, I'm just going to reduce 30% of my nodes and sell that ETH before the next guy does. I'm not going to get rid of all my nodes, because, if ETH goes down enough, then I can always buy back in, if I want to do that. But overall, I think it would probably it might hurt ETH. I don't know. The other one, what I was saying about, what was it that I was saying before that? Not the issuance, but
miners selling, or validators.
Oh no, the amount of stakers.
Institutions. Oh yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
That was my bad.
So if you have 25% of ETH holders are currently staking, which means that if the sell pressure is or if a lot of the sell pressure is stakers selling their profits, then you increase the amount of stakeholders and you increase the amount of dumpers.
Got it.
And so that's kind of what I'm saying with the Dino chains, with Tezos and CeeLo and other things that are kind of like not doing well. I think it's because like there's nothing to do on your chain except stake your token and take profits from that token. And right. When the only thing left to do is farm the house.
Yeah, there's a perspective. I'm suddenly now going back to other stupid coins that I've played with, and yeah, that should have been a red flag for a lot of them. If the only thing you can do here is generate yield, it's going down.
Right. That is, yes. And part of it is because, wait, you're generating yield. What is yield? Inflation.
Extractable value. Yeah.
And now, don't get me wrong, like ETH has the burn, and ETH was inflationary in 2024. Like, not very inflationary, but it was inflationary. I think the thing about
as opposed to right after the burn was initiated, it was deflationary for a while, right?
Right. And so that's part of the argument. Well, that's part of the argument for layer 2s being parasitic is like, oh, well, now the ETH burn doesn't burn as much ETH. So like we're not getting the same amount of fees on layer 1. So now we're not burning ETH. So now we're issuing ETH. So issuance is high again and burn is low. that's another thing though. Are stakers incentivized to do these transactions? Because if you're doing these transactions on layer 1, even though you're selling ETH, you're burning ETH. So like are the so what I was going to say is maybe what I was going to say even different than that was I think ETH chop is good. Like the fact that ETH has constant buy and sell pressure is actually good for traders, because if you want to be a person who trades something, having nice ranges for, you know, like ranges that last for a while, like something that you can pretty reliably see like trends is nice to trade. Like, you know what I mean? Having a more
and volatility is required to trade. Like having the volume for volatility to trade means people are going to get in a trade. If you can't really
semi-predictable volatility. Having unpredictable volatility is hard, because like you buy an asset and it goes down only, or it just chops sideways for a long time and then suddenly spikes up 10, 20, 100%. And you're like, well, what did that happen? You can't trade that because then you're like, all right, well, do I sell? Like, is it ever going to go back down to that price? You have no idea what to do. But when you have something, you know, this is like I'm a semi-trader. I don't trade a lot, and a lot of the times I won't trade because I might think I'm going to trade, and this is kind of what I do. Like I might buy something in a range, and I'll say, oh, well, it's going to break up to this range. I'll sell, and then it breaks up to a new range well above my buy-in price. And I'm like, well, it's not going to go back down to that price. So I'm not going to sell. I'm going to keep it because like now it's more valuable to hold on to it. If I can hold on to it now, it's not going back down to that price. At least you can think this way in a bull market. So then you say, all right, well, I'm not going to trade that because A, I don't need the cash, and B, I can make more by riding higher. And that's dangerous, but also if you have conviction and you feel like something's happening, that's when I double down. It goes up and I go, we're not going back down. So when it dips a little bit, so like for instance, I did this with ETH, got some at 25 and then it jumped up to 35 with it. You know, I got that before the election. Then after the election, it got up to 4K. And I'm like, I'm not selling this. Like, yes, I could sell it for some profit right now, but I know this is going way higher. So then when it came back...
And you don't want to miss the bus trying to buy the next dip and not get back in.
So when it came back down to 33, and some people would sit there and go, oh, I'm losing the profit, I'm missing the profit. And I guess a good trader, I guess, would have done it and then bought back in later, but you were never getting that other price. So what I did was, as a bad trader, I doubled down. And basically when it went from 4K back down to 32, I bought more at 32 because my 25 bet was good. And I know I'm not getting a 25 bet again. So I'm buying the 32 bet because I know 4K is written in the code.
Checked out. I don't think that makes you a bad trader. I think that checks out.
Right. So I doubled down on good bets. You know, like when I see it's riding and I see like, okay, no, there's no reason to get out of this. There's actually reason to double down on this bet.
It's proven that it can get to 4. So I'm going to get in before it goes back to 4.
Right. Exactly. So, but, you know, I'm not much of a trader. But the point is, like, having an asset that chops gives you the ability to make those decisions. It gives you
the ability to make money.
It's the opportunity. It gives you the opportunity to do that. So yeah, I mean, we've touched on a lot today. I mean, our last episode was an hour and 16 minutes or so. Yeah, I thought it was longer. I thought, man, it felt like we did a really long one that time. But it was an hour and 16 minutes, so, and it felt all right. But I know we try to keep them to an hour. We don't want to bore people too much. We do ramble a lot.
We both get distracted very easily.
Yeah, we've been all over the place. We've talked politics. We've talked Bitcoin. We've talked Ethereum. We wanted to talk AI today, and we didn't even get into
Yeah.
AI.
We've just got so much to catch up on. We had so much, it's been a while. It's been a lot of downtime. We got grounds to cover.
I mean, we talked housing, mortgages.
And that wasn't on the docket, but we talked it. Yes, we did. But it all ties together, and it's all observations of the system that we're in, and like we've explained, struggles and observed problems with the system that we're in, and hopefully we can find some solutions using our brand new tools, crypto tools, AI tools, things like that.
Yeah, and I think, you know what? A good way to close this show is the way we meant to open it. I think we should just reaffirm and talk about like what we're doing here at From A to Z. Like, we did, obviously we started off just bullshitting and hanging out with a bunch of ghosts. That was our thing, hanging out with ghosts for a while. And now, then we did the creator economy thing with
It was a bit of an experiment.
with a nameless DAO, and we did the creator economy thing that was really about how these tools that we're using, the internet, how Web 2 and all social media and electronic the access to tools like Adobe and digital audio software and all these things really opened up the world of media to everyone. Like, all of a sudden, everyone could be a writer, everyone could be a musician, everyone had access to the same tools. And then we did Moloch Traps, which is like my favorite. I think we really knocked it out of the park with Moloch Traps, because that's when we really we were going through a rough period with the organizations that we were involved in at that time. And Moloch Traps...
Pretty much all of them at the same time.
All of them. And Moloch Traps was like, wow, this is why you're going through those problems. It was like we knew about Moloch.
It gave us a frame of reference.
We knew about human coordination issues, but then it suddenly became like, we didn't realize it, but we were in crypto, we were in DAOs for human coordination. That's what we did with some of the other organizations we worked in. We were human coordinators.
Those were our roles in these organizations. Yeah.
Yeah. So like that's what we were doing, was coordinating humans, not in any nefarious way, but just to have a good time and to get things done together in a way that made everyone feel productive and valuable, and offering something to this greater like community or industry or whatever the thing we were doing at the time. So I think Moloch Traps for me really I had already read the meditations on Moloch and was well aware of all these things, but really having a discussion with you and going through all of these things with it, and like really, we researched every episode. It was like, yeah, sure, I knew about the Prisoner's Dilemma, but all of a sudden I was watching multiple hours of things about the experiments that gave us the data about all of the different styles of the Prisoner's Dilemma and all the different the way the game theory plays out. Like I watched
and we've come back to that multiple times, the different angles. It's always fascinating. There's always something new to learn.
Right. So I think Moloch for me has stuck true, and I think that's like the human coordination aspect and the reasoning and the game theory, the conversation we were having earlier about unrealized gains. We were having a conversation about the game theory of, how do you fairly go after the rich without hurting people in the middle? Like, how do you know what I mean? And that's what a lot of people would say, well, you just need to tax the rich. And it's like, where's the line? Because the line that some people set would actually hurt your parents. Mm-hmm. It would hurt people because your idea as a youth or an impoverished person about who's rich are very different, and so even
regionally that's different. If we as a country set an example $500,000 limit, like that line, $500,000 a year makes you rich. Well, that $500,000 is a different living experience in different areas of the world.
I don't think that would make you rich in New York or Toronto.
Exactly. That's the thing. Like, if you say $500,000 salary to me in rural Michigan, hey, that kind of goes a ways. But if you say a $500,000 salary to me as someone living in California, I'm homeless. Seriously, like, that it's easy to go rich people and just get mad at rich people, but defining those nuances and defining those specifics is not simple.
And that's part of the game theory. Part of it is because, like, I mean, this is more nuanced, but like, can you get people to defect on each other over small differences because you can't understand how easy it is to add a zero behind 50,000? And I know I'm reducing it, but like, if you know what to do with financial tools and you are making money and you know how to spend your money and you know how to invest your money, then taking $50,000 and putting another zero behind it is really easy.
The tools are there. The tools are there, and especially in a bull market, the opportunities are there.
And it doesn't necessarily make you a bad person because you were able to do that. You know? I think a lot of people have this, like, there's just a lot of stigma towards people with any level of money or assets. And it, you know what I mean? And in a lot of ways, it's like, we're still going after other poor people.
Right. And at the same time, we're also praising billionaires.
Right. Well, I think some of the people that would be going after the middle class, not realizing that it's just the middle class, like, are the people who hate billionaires. So I think the people swinging for Elon will gladly just hit the uppity neighborhood 3 blocks away, which is nowhere near Elon. That's the point I'm making, is that, like, when you see, like, you know, I don't want to say riots, but when you see, like, those kinds of things, like when the thing they had, I forget what year it was, but there was that thing where there was a protest going through a rich neighborhood and they were kind of destroying things as they were going through. And it's like, is this the rich neighborhood that's actually hurting you? Or is this just like people in your community that have more than you? And you're, you know, you're looking at them and maybe, hey, look, don't get me wrong. Like, on the other hand, a lot of those people also think that they're better than you. And so they also have this thing where they're looking down on you as someone that they don't like or don't want in their neighborhood. And that makes it easy to hate them. But I think, I mean, what we're talking about is a lot of game theory and a lot of nuance about, you know, what happens to even people like when you are someone from a poor neighborhood and you suddenly make money, you almost have to hide that. You can't let people know.
Everyone's going to want it.
Right. Not just that, but like, everybody's going to want it, but also people are going to suddenly like treat you differently as if you think you're better than them. That's a big thing in poorer communities. Like, I've seen this with a lot of, like, I guess with a couple of my ex-girlfriends where, like, they were the first person to get an education in their family and stuff like that. And, like, because of that, their family really gave them a hard time over successes. And it's because those successes made the family feel like they failed as people. So rather than praising people around you who do better, you actually just tear them down.
There's a thing. I was just yesterday, very recently, looking into this exact phenomenon. There's a name for it. It's like the tall poppy syndrome, I think. Where the idea is when you've got a poppy crop, there's a few stragglers that are like much taller than the rest. And you just cut those. You just cut the outstanding ones, you just cut them out so that everything looks the same. And it applies in many cultures, historically, currently, across the world, where individuals who stand out in whatever way, in this case, in terms of income, in terms of success, graduation status, individuals who stand out are like not shunned, but kind of, you know, you catch some shit for being better, because get back down here with the rest of us. You know, you're getting cut first. You're going to be the first one people notice. Get back down here. You're standing out too much. Shut up and be normal.
I think it's funny. This is a whole nother tangent that we don't need to get into, but it is funny in the United States. I feel like we have a complex of, I think everybody, maybe not everybody, but like to some degree, everybody in the United States kind of thinks that they kind of want to be famous, or they want to be like, you know, like they want to have some status, some celebrity, something about them that's special, but they also don't want to stand out. And
there's a tough dilemma. I want to be famous for being average.
Right.
Good luck.
Like people just want to fit in, and it's like you can't fit in and be famous. You become famous by standing above the rest.
I heard a stat recently, I don't know how true it is or what the source was, but it was something along the lines of 80% of young people want to be influencers. Like that's their ideal job as an influencer. They're trying to be influencers. And this is one of those things. Like if 80% of people are influencers, is anyone really an influencer? Because now 80% of people are influencing.
How many of those people are influencers that hate social media?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like how many people are like, man, I hate posting. I hate making videos. But that's their goal. And don't realize that like you're kind of like backwards here with, you know, like you haven't really put it together that you've been brainwashed by a society to want something you actually are afraid of. Like you actually don't want that attention.
Boy, that was heavy. But you think you do.
You think you want it because you kind of like are in a society that tells you that that's what you want, but in actuality, like you really just want safety and to be left alone. And so like putting your head up, makes you, you know, like you said, it makes you like liable to get your head chopped off. I mean, especially like now because, you know, cancel culture and whatever else, like people are not everybody, but a lot of people are probably afraid that something they did one time will come out if they get famous. Like everybody can think of something they did that makes them cancelable.
Well, that's
so like,
sure.
Don't even get famous because I'm gonna get canceled. So they've already canceled themselves. I can't get famous because I'm gonna get canceled.
Preemptive self censorship.
Right.
Auto censorship. Weird. That's okay. That's some mind control shit. Don't censor your population. Get them to censor themselves.
That's a slippery one right there because where is the line between external coercion to self-censor and you just having good sense? Like some things I think are censorship in the sense, like, I don't know, I guess I can't get into it without getting into it.
Not talking about a thing. I think I would get what you're saying, though. Not talking about a thing is not the same as preventing discussion about a thing. If you can, like you said, using consent.
Yes,
okay,
but
that's not something.
What I'm saying is, like, for instance, like, like making an inappropriate joke. That's one right there. So like you might think of an inappropriate joke and maybe amongst certain people you can tell that joke and it would be funny and it would not be harmful, even because like even if the, you know, harmful jokes typically involve a group of people. So say that you know a person in that group of people that you could tell this racist or sexist or whatever, inappropriate, just sexual. It could just be sexual. That's actually one that's really big right there, is because you can make a sexual joke that to the wrong person is sexist or it's inappropriate. And so there's jokes that can be funny and not be inappropriate because of the audience. And some people would say, well, if the audience knew you were telling that joke, then, you know, you wouldn't tell that joke to that audience, so you shouldn't be telling that joke. And that's where I think it's weird, because I don't think that... I think censoring yourself because you're going to offend or hurt, or it just doesn't need to be said, it's not a nice thing, so don't say it, maybe, is fine. But when it gets to the level of, you know, oh, we never, ever, ever say these things because, you know, it's not socially acceptable. And I feel like a big one is like with the wars that are going on right now. I'm not going to mention them because they'll definitely get us like demonetized or deplatformed or whatever. But like with the wars going on in the Middle East right now, there was a long time, and still now, where you can't call a certain country out for their war crimes because it just wasn't acceptable to say that in any way. And now it's still not acceptable, but the Overton window has opened to where there's a lot of people posting about those war crimes, and for that reason, now you can talk about it, and it's not something that's going to get you, you know, shut down. I mean, actually, it will get you like deplatformed from things like YouTube. So that's what I'm saying is right now, the fact that I'm self-censoring something I want to talk about because I'm worried that the platform is going to block me or some other way bury me, that is the censorship we don't want. So correct. Polite censorship, self-censorship because you know that the thing you're saying is going to hurt someone or just doesn't need to be said, is perfectly fine.
It's almost like, yeah, that almost feels like a filter rather than censorship. I'm wondering if there's a different word for that internal...
I agree.
I can't think of it right now, but I wonder.
Yes, I agree. A filter... I bet
Japanese has a word for this.
Here's the thing I think is funny about, you know, the filter on certain people is that some people see a difference and have to talk about it. They can't not talk about a difference. Like, even if they're not coming from a bad place, they want to talk about the difference. And that is where...
Like every old white man asking any black interviewee about race.
Or like every, like, good example, every old white man meeting a Chinese person and then saying they served in Vietnam. What the fuck does that have to do with anything? So it's that type of stuff where, like, you're not ill-intentioned, but you are ill-informed, and you don't have...
There it is.
You don't have the filter to not talk about things you don't really know about. You want to get into that thing that, like, you really don't have any business talking about. And Americans, and typically older white Americans, have this problem where they want to poke the bear, even if they don't think they're poking the bear. They just think they're having a normal conversation. They're just trying to understand. They're just
which I support. Yeah.
But
yeah, you can't get mad at these people. They're not doing anything wrong.
No, but you can get mad at these people if you're the person being affected by it. That's, I think, the argument is that, like, if you're a Chinese person, you're fucking sick of this conversation. If you're a person of color at all, you're sick of having this conversation with every Tom, Dick, and Harry.
Yeah, I suppose there would be a built-up frustration. In the moment, in the one example, my mind's thinking, okay, this guy, like you said, is ill-informed, but his intentions are good. he's trying to learn more and explore
Most
this thing he doesn't
people
understand.
probably take each interaction at face value and just go, okay, this person's not an asshole. They're just an idiot, or he's a nice old man, whatever. But other times, this person watches Fox News and voted against you 10 times out of 10. And you're not going to give them the pass because they're doing it on purpose.
I see the difference you're saying. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, well, now that we've disenfranchised half of our fans, no. I don't think we have any Fox News viewers watching this, I
don't think we have any viewers.
No. Well, I mean,
we're good.
We haven't done it in months. Of course, we have no viewers now. Like
I got it.
We've been off the horse,
Anyway,
so no, but we talked mostly crypto today. We talked a lot of human coordination. We talked a lot of valuable information. And more importantly, we reaffirmed people why we're here. We're here for the human coordination. We're here to talk about the things that will help you in techno-feudalism, which is what we're in. We are exiting the era of capitalism. We are already in the era of techno-feudalism. I'm going to say this the way, goddamn, what's his name? The Greek financial minister or something like that, I think. Anyway, can't remember his name right now. But here's the way to think about it. In 1776, no one thought democracy had begun and that colonialism had ended. In 1777, no one realized that democracy had begun. You see what I'm saying? It probably took until sometime in the 1820s before people were like, oh, wow, we're in a new era. Things are different now. It might have even been later than that. It definitely took almost as long as to World War II before it was very clear that the U.S. is in charge here, So, we are in an era right now where capitalism has already died and we are in techno-feudalism. We are living under techno overlords. We are living on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram and all of, all of the platforms we use that are AI is going to be the next big one that's going against us. And yes, thank you for that backup there. It is Yanis Varoufakis, the former Greek finance minister. So I had that right at least. At least I knew, right? I said Greek finance minister.
Yeah.
So I had it. But yes, so he had said this thing about how no one realized that democracy had begun. No one has really realized that we are under techno-feudalism already. Capitalism is already dead. So if you're arguing against capitalism as a system, don't worry. It's already dead, and what's coming is worse. So,
hooray.
So that's what we're here to talk about, though, is human coordination going into this new era. It is techno-feudalism. It is something that I believe cryptography, not just cryptocurrency, but cryptography, zero knowledge proofs, and anything that is going to help people protect themselves technologically, protect their data, protect their finance, protect
privacy, sovereignty,
digital assets. We need, that is what protects you from techno-feudalism is property rights. What capitalism was born out of the idea of property rights. And so this next thing is still an offshoot of capitalism. So property rights are going to be important because otherwise you live on someone else's server. If you don't own your property, then you're under a feudalist lord. And that's going to be Bezos, who owns AWS. That's going to be whoever owns the infrastructure you're on. For AI, it's going to be the person who controls the chips. It's going to be NVIDIA. It's going to be, you know what I mean? So
the difference is it's gone just from physical, actual land property to expand into all sorts of digital and virtual and assets like attention and all these intangibles are now also being manipulated, harvested, whatever.
Every form of value is being turned into a digital commodity that you don't own. And the only thing that gives you any chance is cryptography and cryptocurrency. And while we're still on the platforms, I still believe in the democratization of media. I believe that all these tools belong to us, and it's going to take us taking them back. Like, I think we can build a world where Bezos and Zuckerberg and Elon and everybody else have to start giving back to the people that make these fertile digital lands valuable. And so that's part of why we're here. And we've reaffirmed that, and we've made it clear we are here to fight Moloch. We are here for human coordination. We're here to tell you how we're doing it and how you can do it yourself. And we're not avoiding technology. I think that's the wrong direction. We're not saying, don't get me wrong, start a farm, grow food, get solar panels, I'm a solar punk. You know what I mean? I'm a lunar punk. I'm a solar punk. I'm all those things. I'm a crypto punk. I am 100% saying, like, do all of those sustainable, beautiful things. Be green pilled 100%, but also know this technology. You're going to need it. You're going to need this to get more done. You're going to need AI to get more done. You need Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and whatever platforms to get the message out there. We wouldn't be able to talk about the war crimes of any country and every country. We wouldn't be able to talk about the local police and all the other things that are wrong in every jurisdiction if it wasn't for social media. So pulling out of technology is the wrong direction. Leaning into it, understanding Moloch, understanding how to protect yourself, understanding that it's going to take action, not just asking for it. It's going to take us showing Zuckerberg and Musk and Bezos and everybody else that, like, your platforms are worth nothing without us.
We want something that we can use that isn't ruggable, that isn't, harvesting, that isn't just a pure extraction machine.
And the reality is, if they're not going to give it to us, Web3
we'll just make it.
Is going to build it.
It's already coming. Discord is on its way out. After seeing this Equilibrium product, it's a darn near clone.
Can you use it?
And it's open source,
I
end-to-end
couldn't find
encrypted.
It to be able to download anywhere. Do you have to run a node to be able to use it?
It's browser based right now.
Okay. All right, hook me up, because I couldn't find out how to get in. We got to start a FATS.
I'll get you some details.
Let's do it. Let's start with the FATS.
That is the only thing on my mind right now, like node-wise. Equilibrium node is the only one that I would start up. Maybe a Grass node, but I tried that and it's not terribly profitable. But side notes.
What are the incentives for that? Like, just token incentives?
It's just token incentives. There's no way to sell, or it's like you earn them and they're locked. I don't know the exact details.
Are you also, like, housing data? Like, what are you actually running on the node?
I don't know. I didn't look that deep yet.
Okay.
But it's a project that I would consider looking into to run a node. It's something that, like, okay, I like where this is headed. And to tie it back, this is just an example of if centralized products and companies aren't going to give people what they need or what they want, then Web3 is going to provide it for us, for ourselves.
Absolutely.
And they're just going to get left in the dust. That's it.
That's it. So on our next episode, let's get into AI. I think that's the next big thing we need to talk about. I talked about it a lot in variations, and I feel like I haven't had a big chance to have a conversation about that. We've had conversations, but I haven't had a podcast conversation about how AI is developed, and how I'm feeling about, like, the AI agents, and just, like, how artists are talking about AI, how, just in general, I think there's a lot. And so I think we could spend a whole episode just talking about AI, and we can still talk about crypto and how it intersects, especially with agents and stuff like that. So, and also, hey, listeners, I know you're out there. what do y'all want to hear? You know, like what else do you want to know? What else are you into that where is in the umbrella? Because we're just gonna do what we want until we hear some feedback that's like, oh yeah, y'all should do more about this, more about that, whatever it is. So next episode, AI, and we'll see what's up. And 150K Bitcoin by next episode, right? Is that?
I hope not. I got to get on the bus first.
All right, brother. Well, let's get out of here. From A to Z signing off, and we'll see y'all next time, friends.
All right.